What's up guys, my name is Liam and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Endgame Gear EMB. This is a balanced mouse pad and a follow-up to their EMC, which is still one of my favorite control mouse pads on the market, and I still use it in my rotation quite frequently. So is this going to be the perfect mouse pad for you? Let's check it out. And before we get started today, I did want to let you know that this was sent out to me. However, everything you're going to be hearing in this video is going to be my own words and my own opinions. This did arrive to my front door, flat packaged in this envelope style packaging. And when picking this up, you do have two different size options to choose from. They do have this in 490 millimeters in width by 410 millimeters in height. And this one is actually sitting at 500 millimeters in width by 500 millimeters in height. So this is called the Plus Edition, and they both come in at 3 millimeters in thickness. The base is made out of Poron, and even though it's sitting at 3 millimeters in thickness, it still is an xSoft style variant. So it is still very soft and plush, easy to push into, and it does have great rebound properties to it. The stitching all around the edges does look similar to what came on the EMC. It does sit below the surface, and the stitching is very soft to the touch. They do have their logo up here in the top right hand corner, and it is raised up on the surface. So if you were to move your mouse up here, you can lightly feel it on the bottom of your skates. For the surface, it is textured, so you do feel a texture along both the X and the Y axis. The first initial impression as I got this out of the box is that it feels somewhat similar to the Artisan Hyate Otsu in the overall touch, though they're not the exact same, and I'll jump more into the comparison between both of those here shortly. I really do feel like this is a proper balanced mouse pad. Ever since I first started using this surface, just slightly a hair slower when I first got out of the box, and kind of putting some time into it and breaking it in, it did kind of open it up just slightly a little bit more, but everything feels very similar to performance as soon as I got out of the box. You do get a very low sense of static friction here, so you don't feel any type of aggressive or excessive tugging as you're going back and forth, even using these larger set style of skates. So I found it very easy to move around, make any corrections to my micro adjustments, or do any fast paced tracking. And then when it comes to the glide across the surface, even with the dynamic friction, as you can see, it's just a very smooth glide overall. As it does come to a stop, look how smooth and gradual the stopping is on that. So it doesn't feel jerky or anything like that. And with the properties of this being very balanced, I don't feel like it's too fast or too slippery. If you were to slightly press into it, you do get a greater sense of control. And even as you're sliding across the surface, this does offer a really decent sense of stopping power. One of the most impressive things about the surface is how consistent the performance has actually been on it. All right, so starting out, when comparing it against the Endgame Gear EMC, again, this is more of a control style pad, and the surface on this, even though there's a texture there, this feels kind of more of like a traditional cloth style surface, so it does have a smoother texture. With the EMC, you do get a greater sense of the static and the dynamic friction, and the EMB is just kind of a step up from the EMC. So again, just a little bit less of the static friction here and a little bit less of the dynamic friction as well. And even if I were to give it a really quick spin test here, you can see how this looks just a little bit quicker in the glide. This one does look just a little bit slower with quicker stopping power. So let's go ahead and drop a glide test between the comparison of both of them. All right, so next up, when comparing it against the Hyate Otsu, like I said, these both feel very similar to one another, but there are some differences. One of the first things I do want to note, this is the xSoft variant of the Hyate Otsu, and some of the differences that I would say is, even though the surface of these don't feel that far apart from one another, the Hyate Otsu does kind of have a little bit more of a plasticky type feeling to it. The surface on the Hyate Otsu, it does feel more stiff. And if you were to come over here to the EMB, you can tell how it just looks a little bit softer here on the surface. It's a little bit more stretchy, and it gives you almost just a little bit more of give. I do believe that I have had 4 Hyate Otsus before. I do know that I have them in every type of a variant that they did come in. I actually did main this pad for about a year, so I am very familiar with it. And if you are going to be coming over to the EMB, the performance between both of these, they actually do feel pretty similar, but they're not exactly the same. I would definitely categorize the EMB more of a balanced pad, and the xSoft variant of the Hyate Otsu, I would definitely categorize this more of a speed pad. The static friction on the Hyate Otsu, it does feel quite a bit more quick than the EMB. I've always kind of felt like the xSoft variant of the Hyate Otsu, it almost felt a lot more slippery. And another big difference with the EMB is as you're sliding across the surface, not only is the Hyate Otsu a bit quicker, I did have some issues when I used to use this, struggling with stopping power, where that isn't an issue with the EMB. So again, just all around you have much more control, a little bit slower on the glide, but it does have a little bit more dynamic and static friction with greater stopping characteristics. So we will go ahead and do a spin test here really quick, and they might not look that far apart from one another, but let's go ahead and drop the glide test between both of them. All right guys, so that about wraps things up on the Endgame gear EMB. And since this does have such a solid balanced performance on the surface, I really do feel like this is a solid option regardless of what game you want to play. If you play something that requires precision, that's slower paced, like Counter-Strike or Valorant, again, this is going to be a great option for you. And the same thing goes even if you're playing some of those faster, high-paced games like Apex Legends or anything like that. I really am a huge fan of Endgame gear, as it's obvious to me that they put a lot of effort into their products, and the quality of this really is top notch. So if this looks like something that you're interested in, I can definitely recommend checking it out. All right guys, so if you have any questions or feel like I left anything out, please let me know down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed watching this video and are interested in watching more videos like this in the future, please drop this video a like and subscribe to my channel. And thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.